Hello, everyone. How are you? You are tuned into Foundry Live online. Foundry Live is a term-based event for creative students where we bring industry professionals together to discuss what's happening in the industry. Obviously, we can't do that, so instead we've decided to go to the professionals instead. Before I introduce the guests, please send through any questions you might have. We'll either answer them straight away or we'll get back to them when we pause for a breath. And tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing not one, but two guests, Kate Owen and Chelsea Smith from Futago. Welcome to Foundry Live.
Thanks, Matt. Good to be here.
So, Futago is a Hobart-based design studio with heavy focus on collaboration and tested processes. Kate is the founder and design director, managing with her business partner, Daniel Zika, and Chelsea is the studio coordinator. So first question is, can you tell us a bit more about the studio? Like, what's the makeup, how many people, the sort of roles there are?
Yeah. So there's been a bit of flux, but at the moment we've got about 12 staff. Some people are on leave, so yeah, we'll call it 12, and we have within that we've got a digital team. So we have a digital projects manager and he manages our developers. So we have two full-time in-house web developers who build all our WordPress sites. And then we have, as well as myself, 3 designers. We've got an accounts person, a bookkeeper, and yeah, Daniel, my business partner, who runs kind of design strategy and general business management.
So the interesting thing is, and we talked a little bit before we came on live, you studied as an architect.
Yes, I did. So I'm technically allowed to call myself a graduate architect, but you need to do like another 2 years of practical work and then sit exams to become a fully fledged architect. But yeah, that's my training.
So I read this story, and I just want to see if there's any truth to it, that you and your sister both wanted to do graphic design, but you flipped a coin for it. Is that about right?
That's kind of how I remember it was, last century. So it's but yes, I sometimes I still think I kind of got the good end of it, because I really enjoyed the diversity of architecture, like crossing philosophy, history, the built environment, like just broadened my horizons. From coming from a tiny rural place in Tassie, it was just an eye-opener. So, and then because we both helped each other through our studies, I kind of got to learn all about graphic design and fine arts as well. So
you cheated the system. You basically got double the education.
Yeah, I think enough time has passed that I can actually admit that publicly now.
So Chelsea, your role as the studio coordinator, I guess that's a role that many of the students probably haven't heard about or have heard about but don't really understand what it is. So can you tell us a little bit more about what's involved?
Absolutely. I guess in short, everything. It's kind of an overarching role. It's quite a unique role within the studio. Yeah. I was described as a Jill of all trades the other day. A bit of
nice.
Yeah, which I'm quite happy with. Very happy to take on that role. Just a bit of everything, and really being thrown in the deep end, which has been a lot of fun. I guess liaising with, like, I've got my own client load, liaising with designers, being that sort of intermediary and bit of the glue, I guess, is the word that we've used to kind of hold everything together and keep everything on track. And then even the nitty gritty, like, maintenance and all that sort of stuff. You learn that stuff pretty fast as well.
Yeah. So everything from reception to, welcoming clients, but also managing print production, doing quotes, that sort of thing. And it all, like, it leads into what would be a design manager's role probably in other studios. So that's, Chelsea's kind of stepping into that sort of sphere. Yeah.
Yeah, because to me it sounds like a bit of a studio manager, a bit of an account manager, kind of mixing together. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Look, one of the things I really love about the studio, and it comes from a conversation I had with you, Kate, which was about this idea of, like, I guess, a anti-hierarchy mindset and this kind of trying to get rid of egos. Can you talk more about that, like where that comes from?
Yeah, I guess it's a desire, I guess, because I don't see myself as ego driven, but I'm sure, acknowledge that, of course, I've got an ego and opinions and those sorts of things, but it's really wanting to embrace anyone who's having input into a project, that their ideas are valid, and that it doesn't matter how small someone's input, it will have made a difference to that project outcome. And so it's hard, I guess. It's about being quite egalitarian, and that can be tricky because it means then that Dan and I do everything from taking the rubbish home to and I'll find myself doing a Word template. So it's the nature of being in a small studio as well. But it's all, I think it's just not driven by one person's idea of what is design or creativity. And it's a little while since we had that conversation, so I'm trying to remember what the context was. But I know, like, for example, when I've mixed with peers interstate, like with the AGDA Awards in particular, I've found, I guess, that kind of, especially the male bravado in our industry, that this kind of, what I say goes, and I'm just the antithesis to that, because I'm actually, incredibly quiet introvert who likes being on my own. So I kind of am spending a lot of the time outside of my actual comfort zone. So, yeah.
And Chelsea, I imagine your role probably needs the opposite of that, like more of an extroverted sort of role.
Very much so.
How does that come across? I guess, like, is it? I guess it's like talking to clients but also talking to the design team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an extrovert's role first and foremost, but you do have to be able to adapt. And I think we have a pretty good mix in our studio of introverts and extroverts, probably leaning toward the introvert side. And that, like, the extrovert nature and energy can get quite overwhelming, I imagine.
Yeah. But it's important to have, otherwise we can kind of all just to get a bit kind of,
sure, in
our own world.
Yeah.
And I think being able to relate to clients and kind of go out of your way to be outgoing and welcoming, I think, is so important, particularly at the moment in the climate that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, things have gotten more awkward, haven't they? It's like to shake hands or not.
Exactly.
It's like
such a novelty now.
I'm really not into the whole hitting because when people come up to me and I'm like, they're going to hit me. But, so this sort of flat structure, is it a flat structure that you have in the studio? Or is that going too far?
Technically, I guess not. We have, and that's why I guess Chelsea's role is called coordinator, because she isn't at manager level yet. She works closely with Dan, and then we've got Niall, who's management level. But I guess it's in spirit wanting to treat people as equally as we possibly can, and everyone taking responsibility. And it doesn't always work that way. Everyone's got different skills and different ways of putting in. And, it's been a little while since we've been able to have this happen, but we've had our paid internship program, for example. So, of course, that person is at a certain level and they, get to sit around and learn and do real work and learn from everyone in the studio. So, there's definitely kind of hierarchy.
There's a question that's come through from Jeremy for Chelsea. Who's tougher to manage, clients or designers?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I think I'm going to have to be diplomatic and say both in equal measure.
I like it.
Both at different times they present their own challenges.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is tricky because, Chelsea's got clients going, come on, where's my thing? I need my annual report. We've got to submit it to Parliament at 12 o'clock and she's waiting for the designer to out. And there's only it's quite nerve-wracking, I think, waiting for someone else to do their job so you can do their job, and how to kind of deal with nagging clients and not upsetting designers to go, can't you work faster?
Absolutely. And I think if you're clear from the outset, you do manage to allay a lot of those problems, but they're kind of inevitable and in equal measure.
Yeah. And I guess that's the role the reason we have people like Chelsea and Dan and Niall is that it creates a bit of a kind of a safety net in between the designers and the clients. So it's not like in our presentations to clients and our meetings with clients, the designer's always there talking about their work, and the client can have direct access. But there is a lot of noise that happens between clients, like, countless rounds of changes or, feedback that can just clog up focus time. And so it's really good to kind of have that filter to go, okay, well, here's, and help manage their workload. Otherwise you just get slammed with stuff from everywhere.
Yes. One of the things I always remember from working in the studios when the account manager came up and said they loved it, but, and then you're like, oh no, here it comes. We've got another question from Clint. Chelsea, what was the pathway to the coordination role? Did you apply specifically for it, or did you progress from another role in a studio?
Quite a jagged path.
That's the best path.
Absolutely. When I first studied, I have a degree in media, primarily journalism, and kind of realised towards the end that the journalism path wasn't necessarily for me. So I did a PhD program in it, which is, the most sensible thing you can do when you don't know if it's for you. And then took a bit of a break 5 years ago and started working at a hotel just down the street from us, actually, in Salamanca Place. And through friends, ended up here, heard the role was going, and applied and interviewed as everyone else did, and eventually landed it. So certainly not a logical path at all. And it's kind of fun that the media thing has come full circle now, and you're sort of able to apply those skills in a bit of an indirect way and have a career outcome that's not necessarily on the list that they give you.
Mm.
Yeah, but
I mean, to that point, I mean, Chelsea uses her, she's got copywriting skills and proofing skills, but just understanding the language of photo shoots and video stuff, and she's already had a lot to learn, but to come with all of that experience or knowledge has made a big difference. And I think that's why it's been a really difficult role for us to fill in Hobart, because I guess there's a culture of the account managers at the advertising agencies, but we're a design studio, and it's about also being the person needs to be really cognizant about good design and them having an opinion about whether or not the designer's work is hitting the brief. Chelsea's got an eagle eye for picking up stuff, which is, helps with our quality control and, just knowing that someone else has got your back.
Mm. And it sounds like I'm getting a bit of feedback. It sounds like your background, both just even the hospitality bit as well, was probably really helpful when you're dealing with clients.
Absolutely, yeah. That it was a bit of the face-to-face, very, very similar, but kind of a bit of a different approach in when you're dealing with hospitality patrons, what have you. They're generally there and then they're gone. They might come back, but with a client relationship, ideally they will keep coming back. You don't want it to be a one-off thing.
I really love that about the design industry, just that idea that all the jobs you've had before, there's normally a place where it plugs into in the industry as well, which is really exciting. I'm aware of the time, and there's an area that I really wanted to talk about, because it's an area that I really love from Futago, is this idea of putting the process up front. You have it on your website, and I imagine it's probably one of the first sort of conversations you have with clients. And I like the idea that there's kind of no smoke and mirrors, and it's kind of you sort of show the formula that you're going to work with. Does that make it easier or harder to work with a client?
Well, I guess the whole reason we created that process, and like you say, it's not like it's unique. It follows kind of design thinking or other design process, but the way that we built it was as a client engagement tool. So it was really about making a clear set of steps that we could then take the client along on the journey. So, and it is part of that. You're spot on there, Matt. It's meant to be, we're honest about everything we do. We're not about hiding and then revealing these ideas. It's very much about collaborative in terms of we're sharing where the thinking's coming from, doing our research, sharing our learnings. And it's just amazing, even just the desktop research we often do for our clients, and we put our findings forward and they're like, oh gosh, I never realized that, everyone in my industry all uses pink or whatever it is. So it starts to get them in the headspace, and then it creates a shared language. So we craft a very specific sort of return brief that is the kind of what, why, and how, which frames what we're going to do through words, and then we put a brand personality together. And those words become just, if it's successful, we've got a client, Spring Bay Mill, and nearly every meeting we catch up and Anna's saying, oh, it's got to be cheeky, surprising, and whatever the third personality trait. So it's like they can live that, and then they can judge our design by that. And they go, well, feels a bit depressing, not very cheeky and surprising, or, where's the colour? Or so it's very much about, being an egalitarian sort of approach to design. We're very, conscious in the language that we use. We don't like to use, our internal jargon that, other designers will understand, but, we're not about it, because that can alienate people, and it starts to put a barrier, and they're not going to necessarily want to buy design if they feel that we're kind of elitist wankers.
Chelsea, I imagine the whole process, the idea of a process, could be quite new to a client as well. How do you kind of get it? How do you, I guess, present it to them for the first time?
Step by step, not all at once. I know that probably goes against what you were saying, Kate, about withholding ideas, but I guess walking them through it, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah, and I mean, we spend, like, often when clients come in before they've engaged us, we'll describe the process, but don't know that it necessarily is understood until they're actually in it. So it's one thing. So we're open and transparent, but you already understand what that means. Whereas if someone's never worked with a designer, they often don't kind of twig until you kind of part way through and go, oh, I get that now.
Yeah, I often find that they're quite surprised there's a formula. It feels wrong to call it a formula, but a process. They're kind of like, oh, I thought you just sort of went away and it kind of magically kind of. I was like, no, well, because so it's I always find that kind of a quite interesting. And another thing which I'd be interested to see if you find as well is their clients often get quite confused about, like, because the different phases can grow or minimize depending on the job, and they're always like, oh, so they a week each, and you're like, well. One of the other things for Futago that I really love is context seems to be a really big thing for you as well. So, like, really understanding the context of where it's going to go, but also where it's come from. Where did that come from, that kind of idea?
Well, I'm pretty certain that I attribute to my architecture training, and I guess it's just that you very much, we used to, you have to understand the context. So if you're inserting a building in amongst, the Salamanca warehouses, you'd be referencing the period or how you might, do that. You're also aware of the culture, the people, philosophy, and I think, I've never left Tasmania either, so I'm very conscious of how things can be easily inappropriate in Tasmania if you pick the wrong sort of symbol, using a picture of trees to promote something to a certain type of the audience is going to evoke something versus, So you become, just acutely aware about how important it is to, I think, be respectful to that. But it's definitely, I credit the architecture training in that contextualization and that's very much, and the research component of that too, like the style, the way that we were taught, I've definitely appropriated that into my creative process. And it's interesting, we've had a freelance designer in here just in the last 2 days, and he's, he's older than me, and he's like, oh, wow, it's really interesting, this process that you take, and, oh, it's great that you've gone.
Oh, really?
And it's like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and I guess that's as if people are more designers who are working on their own, they'll have their own process and way of doing things, but they might not have gone to the extent of creating, I guess, a structured client engagement thing around it. But I think more specifically the way that, because I do a lot of visual research to inform concepts, is probably particular.
How do you show that visual research? Is it mood boards, or is it like putting it together in kind of slides?
Well, that's something that's changed for us during COVID, because we've been quite particular about always doing, we love doing face-to-face meetings with our clients, and we've had a big belief that we do it on paper. So we've got a template that we use, it's InDesign, and we put, like, on one page, we might say, if we're doing a new gin label, for example, we'll do a study on the Tasmanian context and perhaps group things. So say, okay, there's a lot of blue being used, or there's these cues. So it starts to set up where there might be opportunities to be different, what we need to be aware of to make sure it's original. So it's one page is usually dedicated to one either area or idea. And but that can extend through to, I guess, putting a conceptual idea forward. So then there might be a mixture of photography or something emotive, as well as an example of something from completely different, like it might be an illustration or a billboard, but to help inform a conceptual approach to packaging. And the reason that we like to do it on paper is, I guess, it's really responding to the fact that every person takes in information in a different way, and we can control it to some degree, but as we go, we put all the papers out on the table so people can then scan what's been said before, and rather than doing a kind of a deck, a slideshow where you kind of it's very curated and it's kind of inhibiting their ability to engage. And we've been living with the work for a couple of weeks, so we know it well, but we're asking them to take in this information incredibly quickly, and it's not their area, so it's just and then they can take that away and they might stick it up and live with it for a while. So that has been really interesting in terms of being thrown into when we had to work from home and doing lots of Zoom meetings, and we've had some good experiences in terms of our probably digital presentations have gone, have evolved in a really positive way. I think our brand and packaging stuff has suffered a bit because we've been not adhering to our formula as much, and it's been a bit more fluid and sharing stuff like on art boards, and so it's gotten a little bit rogue, but it's also just to do with 2020 being a bit rogue.
Bit crazy. Be rogue. That's well said. Yeah, exactly. Do you have many clients out of Tasmania?
No, not at the moment. Like, we've had we used to have a contract with a large outer Melbourne City Council, and we've done quite a few like public art sculptural type works in Victoria and Canberra. But at the moment we do have one international client that we're working on with, which is in the beverage packaging, but it's through a connection from a Tasmanian connection.
Right. Okay. But still, no flying, I guess, to present something at all.
No, I was, at the beginning of the year, I was certain I had a trip to Japan out of that job, but
damn it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we've sort of run out of time, unfortunately. So thank you so much for that. I've got a couple of quick questions for you. So, Chelsea, if COVID didn't exist and you could go anywhere in the world right now, where would you go?
Scandinavia.
Wow. Okay. I like it. Straight in there. Kate, first thing you do in the morning?
Have a cup of tea.
Have a cup of tea. Yep, that's very good. Chelsea, what are you reading at the moment?
I'm reading a book called Quiet. It's about the introvert-extrovert divide.
Yeah, it's really good, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Have you read it, Kate?
Yeah, it's my book that I've lent to Chelsea.
I love it.
So she can understand Dan and I better.
And final question for Kate. What's your best tip from working from home when you had to work from home?
Don't have any Zoom meetings, and it's Perfect.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
thank you very much for everyone who tuned in, and thank you, Kate and Chelsea, so much for your time.
Thanks, Matt.